First, we want to talk a little Ebola vis-a-vis traveling, as many of us are going to be doing here in the next few weeks. Ken Jenkins is the Vice President of Emergency Services for BMS Global. And Ken, all of us here in Ohio, or not all, but many were knocked into the backseat yesterday with the word that somebody exposed to Ebola from the West African man who died. She works at the Dallas hospital, flew home to Cleveland to see family, and then was allowed to fly back. How nervous, if at all, should any of us be about flying these days?
Well, I would certainly be aware of the situation of what's going on, as we all are today. I'm more nervous about the CDC and the guidelines, or the apparent lack of good advice that they gave that young nurse to travel. My understanding was she was supposed to be under isolation, and getting on a plane does not appear to be isolation to me. I wouldn't be too concerned about her traveling at this point simply based on the low grade of her fever. And that my understanding with Ebola is that the higher the fever, the higher the level of virus you have. So I would venture to say that it was minimal risk to passengers around them, but all in all, she shouldn't have been allowed to travel.
Do you think we've waited too long to even get to what we're doing right now? I feel like we're always like looking backwards to see, well, what should we have done better instead of planning better to make decisions. It seems like with everything that happens in this country, this is what we do. With Katrina, we're not prepared for anything, I don't feel like, in this country.
Well, I would have to agree with you in that it certainly appears that way in this particular case, because it looks like we're always coming from behind here. The problem is we have a risk issue and we have a confidence issue. And the risk right now is minimal if people are not symptomatic, that they're not going to be spreading the disease. The confidence issue, I think, is where most of us are having an issue, and that we can't seem to get our hands around it. The CDC, which is the agency tasked with handling this right now, doesn't appear to be in charge, and it doesn't appear that anybody's in charge with how things are going right now.
Ken Jenkins, Vice President of Emergency Services, BMS Global. He and his team specialize in helping passenger transportation providers successfully design, create, and execute disaster responses.
Ken, do you agree with the speculation of people saying now that we should let travel end from right now from West Africa back to the United States, or any flights that are connecting there? What are your opinions on that?
Yeah, Kayla, I don't, and I think it's a great question, and it's easy to go there and say, let's just stop all the travel. But if we do that, we also stop the ability to transport people that can go into the source, the greatest source of the infection, and that's Africa, where we can send not only troops but other healthcare professionals and medicines and support equipment to help eradicate the disease there. So I'm not in support of that. I do like the exit protocols that are being established where people are being screened, and then I also like the entry protocols into the United States. But even there, we're not going to be able to eliminate the risk completely. It certainly does greatly reduce the risk, as we were talking about before, about that confidence and risk issue. So that's the goal, is to reduce the risk. So I'd keep the flights open at this point.
So in short, don't cancel your plans, right?
No, not at all. It's not like, and I'm certainly, and I'm flying today, so, and I don't have any qualms about that. The thing I think to keep in mind is that Ebola is not spread as easily as, say, the flu, and it is not an airborne disease. But that doesn't mean that we're all off the hook. We need to be cognizant of our surroundings, continue to wash our hands, use your antiseptic gel and wipes and whatnot to make sure that we stay as clean as possible.
Yeah, here's a stock tip. Buy Purell.